Today, we're going to talk about composting. So what is composting exactly? Well, in case you're wondering, composting is literally you just deciding to recycle the scraps left over from your fruits and vegetables. You can also put like leaf clippings and, grass and things like that and paper in there as well. And it is you being able to recycle them and turning them into a natural food source for your plants and your food crops inside of your garden. So you can compost in a variety of ways. One of the more popular ways is to kind of compost outdoors, and this is not really requiring you to do a whole lot. Literally all you do is kind of just throw your old food scraps and paper and leaves and things like that into a big pile and kind of just let nature have its way with it. You have fungi and natural microbials that'll help break that stuff down over time. But this method does take a bit of time, and sometimes it can take up to a few years for things to naturally decompose and break down in this manner. Another way that you can compost is using worms, and this is actually called vermi-composting. This is the method that I'm actually using. And so what I have is a little bin filled with a pound of worms in there, and I feed them my food scraps and my paper waste, and they are able to eat through this stuff literally in weeks, and they are able to create worm castings, which we call black gold, and this is a natural fertilizer that you can use for your plants and your garden. So let me show you guys how I actually set up my worm bin. Alright, so we're getting the worm bin together. I actually had to do a whole nother bin because the ones that I started originally, these right here, they were way too shallow and they just weren't going to work, so that was a waste of my money. So I got a deeper tub and I just drilled a bunch of holes in there for drainage, and I'm going to stack it on top of another one so that it catches the liquid. And I put a bunch of holes in the lid so that the worms can breathe. And now I'm about to lay some paper on the bottom to kind of help soak up moisture. And then we're going to put soil in there and layer it up from there. So we got the soil in here and we're just putting some paper in here, but we're getting ready to like dig a hole and drop all of our worms in there. And then start putting the food scraps in. All right, so we have the food scraps in there, paper underneath, the worms are in there, and we just have it covered up with an additional layer of paper. Now I'm getting ready to take them home and let them get comfortable in their new space and just see how they do. They look creepy as hell. I don't like worms, but I appreciate what they do, so we're gonna make it work. So let's talk about some of the things that I've learned thus far just from starting a worm bin. So first things first, I learned that you cannot lay your food scraps just on top of the soil. After 2 days of setting up my worm bin, it started smelling kind of bad. I noticed that the worms weren't eating the food and there was a buildup of fruit flies. And so that helped me realize that you actually have to bury the food under the soil so that helps control the odor, and it also helps the worms get better access to the food. And ever since learning that, I have not had any trouble with them not eating the food. I also have not had any problems with smell and no more bugs. Another thing that I learned is that the worms actually eat through the food scraps a lot faster than I thought. So as you guys know, I started vermi-composting last week, and right now what I'm doing is making up little baggies of food for my pet worms because I realized that they're actually eating a little bit more than what I thought. So right now this is just like a bunch of finely chopped up veggie scraps, and then this over here is just like some leftover stuff from food that I've chopped up throughout the week. And what I'm doing is putting these bags together, and I'm going to freeze them until I'm ready for them so that I can get this stuff out of my way. But I happen to just go check on the bin just to see how they're doing, and it's like there's no food in there. And I gave them strawberries yesterday. They tore those things up. So I'm observing them, just learning how often to feed them. Lately it seems like I might need to feed them at least once a day or even every other day. And I'm only giving them about this much food. And what I do is I dig into the soil and I lay this inside of the soil and then cover it back up so that there's no fruit flies and stuff that can get to it, and it's easier for them to get to it when it's under the soil. And by the time I go digging in there looking for it, it's not there anymore. So that lets me know that they're eating this stuff pretty quickly, which is way faster than I thought they would. So today I actually gave them 2 servings of this. So I fed 2 different parts of the bin. My bin, I'll show you. My bin is kind of, well, it's not big, but this is what it looks like. And I fed them in 2 different places. I don't feel like taking the lid off right now, but I fed them in this spot and then I fed them back here. So I gave them 2 servings today, and I'm not going to feed them again for the next few days. I'm just going to observe and see how long it takes for them to eat that stuff up, and then I'll know. So why did I decide to start vermicomposting? Well, first and foremost, considering the fact that I am fully plant-based and that I've been eating this way for almost 5 years now, it's a shame that I'm just now getting started with composting. I go through way too many vegetables to not be composting them and creating something with them. I mean, you can actually make money off of selling worm castings. This is a very, very big business. Or you can also make money off of selling your worms. So you can actually grow worms in the same fashion by just feeding them. They'll naturally multiply, and people need these worms for things like this, composting. So that's one reason why I decided to get into it. But secondly, I've actually started gardening myself. And at some point, I want to be able to be completely self-sufficient where I don't need to go to a store and buy things to feed my plants. So this is why I decided to start composting, so that I can create my own plant food, as well as have a byproduct that I can use to help enrich my soil or sell it for profit if that is something that I wish to do down the line. So why am I keeping my worm bin indoors? Well, that's because the type of worms that I'm using, which are red wigglers, require special living conditions. So right now, we're in the heat of spring, so temperatures are rising, and these worms actually need to be in temperatures that are under 80 something degrees. And because it's starting to get too hot outside, I don't want them to overheat. So I am deciding to keep them indoors so that I can better control their living environment. This also makes it easier for me to access it and maintain the bin. It also reduces the likelihood that rodents or other bugs will infiltrate the bin, because I definitely don't want that to happen. But, like I said, as long as you do things properly with your bin and you keep the moisture down, you keep the food scraps under the soil, you shouldn't even notice that they're there. They're in a nice, discreet space in my home. They don't bother me. I don't pay them any attention. I don't smell it. So I'm cool with it being where it is. And if you guys decide to start doing vermicomposting in your own home, then you'll definitely be able to find a nice, comfortable space for them in your home, and they will not bother anything. As long as you do things properly, they will not escape and you will not have a worm problem. So just wanted to share my experience with vermicomposting thus far. I'm just a week or so in, but I'm actually kind of enjoying the experience and learning a lot about how to connect back with nature, because remember, nature produces our abundance and gives us everything we need. And so I am learning just that, how to get everything I need from nature. So thanks guys for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next video.